Spider-Man is a superhero film directed by Sam Raimi, known for other movies such as The Evil Dead, Darkman, Crawl, just to name a few. It was the first ever superhero movie that I ever saw, and I couldn't have been more happy to see it from so long ago. Released on May 3rd of 2002, it follows the iconic story of nerdy awkward Peter Parker who gets bitten by a radioactive spider, moons over Mary Jane, loses his uncle, becomes the famous eponymous hero, and protects New York City from the madness of his arch enemy, the Green Goblin. My first impression, of course, was filled with joy as the movie became my most favorite Marvel movie at the time when I was growing up, as well as the character immediately becoming my number one superhero in the entire world, for a number of good reasons. The unique abilities, one of the best rogues galleries, the unforgettable Stoom, and eventually the ever-going satisfying media incarnations, such as more movies, games, toys, shows, and the like. This movie had those statements where the cast were great fits for their respective characters. Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. And after watching many countless times, I have to agree, and half is mostly because many of the stars are indeed talented people to praise, with Tobey Maguire most of all being my top favorite celebrity from there. The Green Goblin is, without a doubt, the first ever excellent villain played by the legendary Willem Dafoe, since every scene when he's the Goblin is just magic. And the many others I've gotten to know and love as well, cause that's just the kind of guy I am. The scene any diehard fan could ever remember is the first fight between Spider-Man and Goblin during the Unity Day festival, which gives me goosebumps every single time. I also enjoyed Spider-Man tracking down the wrong guy that he thought killed Uncle Ben, the burning building fight, the first official appearance of the web slinger, final battle between the Goblin, and mainly the final swing. I also do enjoy the opening credits that will of course feature the hero and the villain. As both time and the years fly by, there are what I think some interesting sights you can either see clearly and or miss them the first time. Stan Lee's cameo in the festival fight where he protects a little girl from falling debris. When Green Goblin gets up, you can see a shade of purple on his helmet, which makes him look like his comic book appearance. That scene where Peter Parker catches Mary Jane's lunch, it actually took Tobey Maguire over 100 tries to perfect it, which is the most shocking and impressive thing out of the entire movie for me. Eddie Brock's name was mentioned by Robbie at the first time when we see the Daily Bugle.
Eddie's been on it for weeks. We can barely get a glimpse.
Spider-Man's suit is everything wholly in of itself, with the addition of the silver raised web pattern, and three noticeable differences from other media, like the inability for his eyes to help express his emotions, the soles of his boots being dark, and blink and you'll miss it web shooters, which gets a little complicated and confusing. You see, I was unaware that Spider-Man in the comics makes his own web fluid, which is fired from his trademark web shooters, but in the Raimi verse, his webs are organic, made as part of his transformation. This was because Raimi believes that a kid like Parker would never be able to make web shooters, despite how smart Peter is supposed to be. Mary Jane, portrayed by the lovely Kirsten Dunst, is depicted as Spider-Man's first love interest, where in the comics, it was Gwen Stacy until her tragic demise at the hands of the Goblin, which was, of course, replicated in the climax of the movie, only for Spider-Man managing to save MJ. The final battle between Spidey and Gobby is the most brutal part in the entire movie, since there was no music for starters at first. And a cool little note that Spider-Man's webs are indeed very strong and steel-like, because when Goblin rips apart that giant web, you can actually hear some metal ripping noise. Since Parker is supposed to be the favorite bullying victim of high school jock Flash Thompson, It's actually surprising to know that in real life, the dude who plays Flash, Joe Manganiello, is actually 1 year younger than Tobey Maguire. Manganiello was born in 1976 and Maguire was born in 1975. Two other blink and you'll miss it scenes showcase the Twin Towers shown briefly in Spider-Man's Islands, which was supposed to start off the montage of him being introduced to New York, but it was cut because of the tragedy of 9/11. And the little nightmare that Peter has at the hospital where Green Goblin is seen screaming into the camera and another goblin is behind him, which is supposed to be Harry. Kind of a little bit of foreshadowing now that I think about it. More childhood feels came to me on DVD release, both the main movie disc and the special features disc. The former opens on a reminder of how some DVD menus were awesome back in the day, in my opinion. Once you're ready to watch the movies, Spider-Man kicks you in the face, which is reviewed the same way that he takes down Goblin. The marketing campaign held TV spots of the movie, as well as other stuff like the songs of Hero by Nickelback and What We're All About by Sum 41, as well as the trailers for Stuart Little 2, Men in Black 2, Mr. Deeds, Triple X, Stan Lee's Mutant Monsters and Marvels, and of course, Spider-Man. The latter disc has where you can either pick the Goblin's Lair for the behind the scenes and other editions, or Web of Spider-Man that focuses a little more on the comic aspects, which I will present to you now.
Spider-Man hits and tips for the first 3 levels.
Overall, the first Spider-Man movie was one of the biggest pieces of my childhood, which I continue to look back on to this day, and every single time I watch it, I definitely feel like I'm back in that year more than any other movie ever.
Who are you? Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.